This time around on Author's Corner, a conversation with Dr. Fred Hardwicke. He's written a book called, you're going to love this title, Math is Wonderful. So we're very pleased to be joined by him on America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney. Dr. Hardwicke, nice to meet you.
It's good to be here.
Let's talk about your road to math, because you were a cancer doctor, so you've got that happening. You obviously had a lot of schooling. You obviously had to deal in probabilities and mathematics and that kind of thing. But I think that this stretches back further than that, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it does. I suppose I had a very early interest in mathematics, and it's one of those things where so many people didn't like math, and math energized me. It was something that was interesting to me, and unlike English class or that sort of thing, with math, you either get it right or you get it wrong. It's not any in between. So.
Exactly. What was it that inspired you to write the book? Is it partially because you've always had that love for math?
Well, I consider myself sort of like a math explorer. I mean, if you take that analogy, I mean, if you were the cowboy that discovered like Carlsbad Caverns, wouldn't you go out and tell somebody, or would you just keep it all to yourself? I think you would like to tell somebody, and that's kind of how this happened. I never really felt like writing a book of math was on my bucket list, but I guess in recent years I decided I needed to write a book about some of the things that I was discovering. But my wife can tell you that I'm always scribbling out some math something, if there's something that my mind is thinking about and working on. And I think that even people who've been in math all their lives may find quite a number of things in my book that they really haven't thought about that much.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about your book. You have some amazing numbers, and when you look at numbers, they do play a significant role in our life. There's no question about it. And your book, Math is Wonderful, by the way. Everybody listening, you can get the book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, of course, anywhere great books are sold. So in saying that, for example, you and I had a great off-air conversation. You made me ponder a lot of things about numbers. What is exciting or special about 5280?
I call 5280 the Denver number because they have publicized themselves as the Mile High City. So 5280 is one of those numbers that we kind of grew up with. Some of us could remember that, other people couldn't. I would say, first of all, that 5,280 divided up into factors. You have 32 times 3 times 5 times 11. And honestly, I don't know exactly why they decided that was going to be a mile. But a few years ago, I was re-looking at something that I guess we heard about at least as a footnote in our education that if you follow a diagonal line in the mathematics table, uh, that uh, that is called a parabolic. So if you have a parabola 10 diagonal, the middle one is 5 times 5, which is 25. And then rather than the parabola going upward, it goes downward. So you have 6 times 4 besides that, brings 25 down to 24. And then the next one is 7 times 3, which goes to 21. But each one of these, if you add rather than multiply, is 10. So 5 plus 5 is 10, 6 plus 4 is 10, 7 plus 3 is 10. Now, the reason why I'm just bringing this up is because there was a period a few years ago where I was looking at this feature, and then I discovered that, well, some numbers actually had a double parabola connection. And then I discovered that some of them had a triple, so that different ways of multiplying together to be that number wound up on different parabolas, but connected one number with another. And then, as I guess the final one, because I have never gone past this, that some have 4 parabola connections, one number to another. So here's the deal about 5,280. Who knew? But actually, that is a starting number for a 4 parabola connection to another number, a higher number, which in turn then has a 4 parabola connection with a yet higher number. So that's an extremely rare sort of a number, a phenomenon. And it just happens to be a number that we've talked about before, 5,280. So who knew that? But I find that interesting.
I do too, and that's what's so great about your book. You just feel smarter when you start to look at it and you realize, wow, I never would have come up with that. And you also talk about, for example, and we're not going to tell everybody everything in the book because you need to get this because it's really fascinating. But what are the 7 great numbers?
Yes. Well, first of all, I will say that was my description on it, but I don't really feel like it's hyperbole. I think it's probably the most interesting thing that I've seen as I've looked at these parabola connections, and it refers to a sequence of numbers that has triple parabolic bonds with the next one. And after you go through all 7, then you will reconnect with a number 16 times higher than the first number. So the first number is 120, and 16 times higher is 1,920. And the thing about these parabolic connections is that the higher levels, like 4 times as much, 16 times as much, the parabola connections at that point is automatic based on the ones that you had before. So basically, you're making a staircase of parabola connections. I realize that math today may be harder than previous times because, you know, we've we've got all these calculators. They're everywhere around us. We technically don't need to have all the skills that we used to, so to speak. But I still think that it is important as an educated person to be able to do the mathematical table up to 10, so that you could actually do a mathematical multiplications without using your calculator.
Yeah, perfect place to end this. We could talk for hours. It's fascinating to me. Math is Wonderful, the name of the book. Dr. Fred Hardwicke, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I'm glad I could tell you about the book, and I hope some people will be interested enough to look it up. I think that they won't be disappointed.
Oh, I don't think they'll be disappointed either. It is fun, no question. Thank you.
Okay.